Good morning, all. If it's a morning for you. In the UK here, we've got some great weather at the minute. Yesterday was so hot, and I think it was like, even in the evening, it was still 28 degrees C, which is very warm. So, in this life, I'm going to talk about it's visualization, right? Be clear on what you want, on your goals in life. So whatever you want, because this world's quite fantastic. You can literally have what you want if you're prepared. What the fuck is that? Get out. If you're prepared to focus on it, right, you can have what you want. You can basically have whatever you want, but all you need to do is, in order to make visualization to work, manifestation, there's two parts to it. You first got to focus on it, because where your focus is what you actually get. And I'm a great believer in this, that directing your focus properly is half the battle. There's two parts to it. The first is what you're focusing on, and then you need aligned action. So it's, if you think about it, you need to have a vision, have a focus, what I call I call it an identity, but you can call it what you want. It's your visualization, what you want. And then at the very end of it, you need aligned actions. So what you do on a day-to-day basis needs to be in alignment with that. And in the middle, there's all sorts of things that we do to sort of create that. In my identity evolution cycle, which I showed you yesterday on the live, it's on the website. You can go and have a look on Goal Achievement Hub, but it's also here. I will find it. There you go. The identity. You'll have to mirror that because it's alive. But at the top, you've got your identity, which is basically your visualization of what you want. Then you've got in the middle, this is your plan, right? Which is like your project. So I create like a set of goals, which are like results, and then you might detail out what you need to do to get them. But then right at the bottom there is your habits, what you do on a day-to-day basis. So, and if your habits are in alignment with your identity, they confirm your identity, right? So the idea is you can give yourself an identity, whatever you want, right? But unless you live in accordance with it, a good example of this is if you say, oh, I'm a really super healthy person, I don't drink and I don't smoke and I eat really well, and then down here you're eating takeaways and getting drunk every night, then it's going to confirm a different identity. You know what I mean? So it's very important that your habits are in alignment with your identity. Otherwise, it will not confirm that identity. It will confirm something else. So this is why I write that down, that identity. I write it down because it's a focus then, and it means that you can be very clear on what you want. Right, so if you think about it, visualization, there's two parts to it really, either end have to be in alignment. You've got what you want, what you're going to focus on, what you're going to visualize, and then what you do. And they're kind of two halves that go together. Hello, how are you doing? Thank you for joining, by the way. Yeah. How about upbringing? What do you mean, upbringing? I was listening to something the other day on psychology, because a lot of our modern psychology is, I think it's based on Carl Jung, right? And somebody was making the case that that might not be the best model because that Carl Jung model is focuses a lot on your upbringing and your childhood, which undoubtedly has a massive impact on your life. But it also keeps you in this cycle of keep blaming your childhood. Right. Well, really, what you should be doing is taking action. You know, it doesn't have to define you forever. You can take action to make change instead of blaming your childhood. Right. And there was another one which, oh yeah, your habits, your identity. Yeah. So we're right. So okay. In terms of your upbringing, yes, for sure. We are a product of our environment, right? Creatures of habit. You might have heard the term. So it's easier if your upbringing involved maybe caregivers or parents that were more, let's say, lived those kind of habits themselves and were maybe a bit strict and sort of taught you good habits and things like this. Yeah, of course, you've got to like nurture children in good habits. I'm always a big believer of like getting kids, like I journal and I get kids to journal too, you know, like my kids, I make them journal and I make them read, right? Because in my mind, like I didn't do this when I was a kid. So when I was a kid, my upbringing was not that nurturing, really. It was okay, but I wasn't pushed. I had to push myself, you know. I remember from the age of about 12, just going, I'm gonna have to dig myself out of this life, fuck it, and just going on one, right? and I just use my natural ability, but not everyone does that. So I do believe that, yeah, your upbringing has a massive impact. I always say that from my own perspective, my own upbringing meant that I was late to the party, you know what I mean? I could have been a lot more further on had I been nurtured from a younger age. But you can't complain about the past. You've just got to crack on and do what you can today. So yeah. Did you meet someone at the age of 12? It was an example. No, it was like, well, kind of. At the age of 12, it was, I don't know, it was just like a light bulb moment in my head. You know, we had nothing growing up, and I was just like, I just remember there was like a light bulb moment going, you know what, I don't want this life. I'm going to have to, well, life was okay. It was just very basic. We had no money, absolutely nothing. And it was like, just with my brothers, you know, I was just growing up in, but times were tough then. And it was just like, I don't want this life, I want better. And yeah, just some switch went off in my head and I just went for it, you know what I mean? And I just made a massive change compared to the rest of my family. From that moment, just, you know, study, university, career, went down because, like I say, you don't always get the right guidance. So I went down the path of what was taught to you then. Get a good job, get a career, get a fucking mortgage, all these things that I wouldn't have done were based on what I know now. But I worked very hard. Yeah. So yeah, I didn't meet someone specific. I mean, you know, I just started studying other people, and I was big into music then. You know what I mean? To me, it was like rock music. I was just like playing guitar all the time and just getting big into music. Yeah, but back on topic, right? But by the way, from the age of about 12, I pretty much had the same identity, right? So I've had that same visual my whole life from about then. I always knew I'd have some kind of business, right? And even then, you know, what was I good at the age of 12? I was great at kind of art and design, and I was great at mathematics and problem solving. So I went into engineering and design, right? And now make software for engineers and designers, right? So I kind of followed that right from 12. That was my skill set, and I knew I would have some kind of business, some kind of product-based business back then. And that hasn't changed. The only thing that has done is I've refined it. So yeah, in terms of that, like being clear on what you want, I feel that I've always been clear on the vision. A really important book, by the way. This is all over the place. You've probably read this. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It is pretty good. The best bit for me is habit 2, which is begin with the end in mind, right? And I'm just going to pull something out here now, talking about visualization and why it's half the battle to visualize. So what you focus on in your mind, if you don't visualize what you want, you know, your target's off. You need to focus on it, but that's only half the battle, visualizing. The other half is taking action in alignment with it. But in here, in the habit 2, which is begin with the end in mind, I like this bit. It's called, here now, it's called All Things Are Created Twice. So begin with the end in mind is based on the principle that all things are created twice. There's a mental or first creation, and then a physical or second creation to all things. So just think about that, right? This is why you have to be really clear on what you want, because everything is created twice. The first creation is a mental creation. That's your focus. And the second creation is a physical creation. That only happens after you take action in alignment with the mental creation, which is your focus. I'm going to batter that. It's like a fly. Yeah, anyway, yeah. You shouldn't kill. All living things, respect them. Apart from this thing. Yeah, so that I think that's really important, because visualization, having focus, you know, I think Tony Robbins says that what you focus on expands. I believe it. And I also have started to go a bit further in terms of visualization, in understanding a bit more about the power of the placebo effect. You might have seen this in a few of my videos, but I always carry a little piece of citron with me, right? Tiny little crystal, put it in my pocket. I've got a big piece of citron as well. And citron is a crystal that is for developing your career, your creativity, and manifesting abundance and success. So I love this one. When I talk about achieving goals, citron is my favorite crystal. And I totally love it. So I've got like a shitload of them now. Look at that, hey, big tub of them. Little small, what I call pocket citrons. And you can get a big crystal, but what you do is you just take a little piece of it like that, and you just stick it in your pocket, and it costs you nothing. Like, they're cheap, right? I'm going to be giving them away with the free with the journals, but you know, they're only like a few quid. But just having a chunk of it like that and sticking it in your pocket, for me, is worth the placebo effect alone, right? Because it's all about that visualization and focus. Just having it there makes me feel better. And if I feel better about it, that's a mindset thing that is aligned with, you know, what I want to get in terms of visualizing my goals and things, just having that mindset push is worth it. That is the power of placebo. Because remember, it's half the battle. All things are created twice, as Stephen Covey says. In habit 2, begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. I'll read it again. Begin with the end in mind. All things are created twice. Begin with the end in or is based on the principle that all things are created twice. There is a mental or first creation, your visualization, and a physical or second creation to all things. It goes on to say, take the construction of a home, for example. You create it in every detail before you hammer the first nail in place. Very true. We plan it out. Everything we do. There's a mental creation, there's a plan, there's a visualization. You don't create anything without thinking it through first. I spent my life as my career as a designer of all things. I got really good at not just drawing, but 3D modeling was my thing. I used to create these like photorealistic visualizations and fly-throughs, and I used to. I got into doing these for like high value properties, like the footballer houses type thing. And developers used to pay me to create these like kind of photoreal walkthroughs. And they could literally sell these places off plan. These really like massive houses, really expensive, just off that visual, because people get so immersed into them, and there's all this technology, right? Like, I used to do these videos, and you've got like VR technology. I mean, the software company that I have manages, you can fly around these 3D models in it, that's what it is. I went, because I was a designer, I now serve other architects and engineers to visualize their designs. And there's a virtual construction. We have this thing called building information modeling, where you click on an item in the software. Let's say it's like a piece of equipment, and it will give you the full breakdown of it, all its specification, all its maintenance history, and all that. But there's a visual representation of it that you get immersed into, and that is creating things twice, because they call it a virtual build. You ever seen these animated build sequences where you see it animated, and they can do scenario planning in these 3D models to see how every beam is laid, every wall is constructed, check for clashes, and they can simulate like vehicle movements. And that is creating it twice. They call it a virtual build, because the software now is quite advanced. It can use mathematical models to check like forces and structural stability, and model sunlight and things like this. And so that's it. You create everything twice. It's like whatever business goal you want, you first think about it, don't you? Was it hard to change your habit and your identity? Yeah, of course, yeah. But I think this is why your identity, let's say that's at the top, on the identity evolution cycle. There we go. I'll just show you that again. You'll have to mirror it, but at the top you got your identity. This can last multiple years. You might have the same. I've had pretty much the same identity since I was 12. But your identity might be like a 5-year vision or something like that. It could be even 10 years, right? Very hard to achieve, but underneath you've got a set of goals, which can be anywhere from sort of, 6 to 12 months. These are like plans, like actual detailed plans. Your identity is basically, I would say your identity should be 2 or 3 sentences, just a paragraph, because it wants to be detailed enough that you can then break it down, like break it out into a set of goals, like which are plans, right? And they might be more detailed. And then your habits down at the bottom is the hardest bit. In here, in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, in habit 2, begin with the end in mind, Stephen Covey calls it a personal mission statement, which is the same thing. You create this statement about yourself. I call it an identity. And it's a massive target. So to achieve that identity can take multiple years. But your goals are a bit more intermediate, you know what I mean? So like you've got projects. So in here, there's, I'll just skip to it now. You've got this thing called the life harmony model there, where you're going to create some goals on. So you score yourself from 0 to 100%. Where you think you are, like here now, you've got things like at the top there, you've got like physical, which includes your health and fitness, where you feel you are. Up here, there's like lifestyle, if you value lifestyle, you know. And then you got like relationships. This is just an example. It scored very poorly. But the idea being 0 in the middle, 100%. And the idea is to become like well-rounded. You want to grow this shape. It's a radar chart. You want to like grow it, you know, fill out more. But you might focus like here now. You might be like, well, relationships pretty bad. I better work on that. You know, you might have some like poor relationship with your family or whatever that you need to work on. So what you would do then, if your identity has something to do with that, you would create a goal which is like, you know, and then a project in that area and start working on it. So when you get to your goals, I always think that you should have like 3 to 4 goals at any point in a 6-month period, and only one of them be a primary goal, right? You might have 1 or 2 primary goals. Ideally, it's better if you have 1 primary goal and then some supplementary goals. So to give an example, right, my identity, I'll just read it because it's easy. So I've got in my identity now, I said, I want to add value in my IT business, my software business, and also my authoring business, so that both are successful. I want a multi-generational family that is successful, and I want to do all this whilst being at peace. So there's kind of 3 big parts to it, 3 sentences. So when I go to my goals, I've scored myself. I've got a primary goal, which is my main business. And it's like an amount of money that I want to get in a 6-month period in terms of license renewals, software licensing basically. And then I've got like, you know, how am I going to achieve it? Well, there's like, you know, I've got 5 things here, and 2 of them are absolutely musts. The first one is responding to tender opportunities. So like, you know, you bid for projects, we do like big like infrastructure projects. So I've got like 3 tenders. I'm on my 4th actually. Well, I suppose one of them wasn't too good, so I suppose I'm doing 3 at the minute. And then we want 2 new clients in, we just entered the social housing. I've got an event next week, got to do a trade show in the city, and we want 2 new clients. So that's quite a hard one. And then we've got to achieve another certification. And some other things like optimize websites, videos, and then very important for me, always delight clients. This is like customer service. This is off topic, but just a little massive important one. If you get a client, it's far more important to keep your existing clients happy than it is to get new clients. You know, reducing customer churn. You should, when you get a client, focus on them rather than trying to always get new clients. because it's a fucking merry-go-round trying to get new sales. You want to retain clients, it's better. So that's my primary goal. I've got another business goal here, which is my second business, the authoring business and selling the journals and things. But that's more of a passion project. It's what I'm interested in. Helping people achieve their goals, of course, because that's what it is. The Journal for Goal Achievement, the best journal on the market for hitting your goals. Helps you guide you through this, create your identity, set your goals, and start working towards them with habits. So that's another goal, but it's not yet a primary goal because it's not my main business that's feeding all this. And then I've got supplementary goals. I always have one on fitness. I always think, to me, the fitness or health and fitness. So I've got that goal here. And then I've got another one about investing. So I've just moved my pensions and stuff. And then I've got one about family. I've actually developed a fifth one. I always say I should have no more than 4. But I put in a quick one about family. But anyway. So anyway, once you've done all that, the next bit is, in answer to your question, how long does it take to form them habits? Well, it's fucking hard, right? And it depends on how ambitious your identity is, your visualization. So if you've got this kind of 5-year vision, right? Breaking it down into 6 monthly projects, this 6 months, my goal is to achieve this, and this is how I'm going to do it. If the change is massive, then it's going to be really hard. And forming habits is difficult because, especially if it's something new, it's like resistance. So if you have a goal to, I don't know, quit drinking, right, and you drink a lot, or let's say quit smoking is probably harder, because it's a pure addiction, or quit smoking weed or something like this, then that's going to be difficult. How do you do it, right? I think in that scenario, I'm not a specialist on quitting weed. My friend Joel is, on Sobriety University channel, he specialises in it. But it's just forming a habit again. You could have a habit in terms of waking up early in the morning to train, forming a habit of journaling, which is what I've done successfully and never miss a day. Forcing yourself to get up and do, one of the good habits that I do is focus on 3 things a day to work towards my goals. Being consistent on that is actually quite hard. How do you do it? Well, you just got to start, right? And understand that if you slip up, some of these habits, they take, I think it was something like 62 days, they say, but I think it takes a bit longer. I always think that you need a good 3 months. So if you're on your tracking yourself with a journal, and let's say you got 6 months of work in here, I always think that by the 3-month mark, that's when your habit should be solid. And then by the 6-month mark, that's when you start noticing meaningful change. But it goes on, it takes years, right? It never stops. But in terms of reinforcing habits, it's fucking rock hard. I mean, you've got to hijack your brain and tell yourself why you have to do certain things. It's like anything. It's like the first time you ever try and lose some weight and go to the gym. And it's not like you don't lose weight in the gym, you lose weight on diet, right? So it needs extreme discipline and control that is pure pain at first. But once you get to about 3 months, if you can get to that point and you keep hijacking your brain and keep reinforcing every day and pushing yourself through the resistance, this is a mindset thing to change habits. You've literally got to have a really strong mindset. And that's what you do, right? Unless if you keep slipping up, that's fine. You can slip up. What do you do when you slip up? Get back on the horse. Accept that you slipped up. And get back on. And the idea being is, let's say if you look over 6 months, I mean, that's what I like about it at the bottom. You always get the correction bit, right? Right at the bottom, you record, how can I improve? And what you should be seeing is less slip-ups over time. So let's say you're slipping up once a week, and then on month 2 you're slipping up once every 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden in month 3 it's like once a month, and then after that it's just like maybe once a year or whatever. That's progress, right? Because, you know, we're human. Our emotional brain is usually our weakness. You know, if we were just robots, just going, program us to just do this from now, we would. But no, we've got this, somebody used to work with used to call it a soggy disk drive up here, that comes up with all these fucking excuses and emotional reasons why the resistance takes over and we just slip back to old habits. The diet is a big one on that. You know, if you're craving sugar and all the rest of it and you just can't stop, and junk food, and you keep telling yourself you can have a cheat meal every week, you're not going to get in shape. You keep lying to yourself. You can have a cheat meal every now and again. Do you know when you have a cheat meal? After you've gone through the absolute pain and agony of changing your diet. So I would, if you're in that situation where I used to be like this, I was like, I remember I was doing all right, but I never quite got there. And it was only when I went absolute militant keto, like tracking calories and militant keto, it really shifted the needle. And it's got to the point now where I hardly have to work hard to stay fairly lean, because I don't have sugar addictions. I don't need anything like that. So I'm pretty much permanent low carb. I do have some carbs, but the whole foods carbs. But when I do want a cheat meal, I know that I can control it. I know that I can. Like if I go on holiday and I have a fucking ice cream once every blue moon or whatever, I know that I'm not going to slip back into it and then every week be doing it. It'd be like one-off. Because I'm at that point, I've trained myself. So you can, once you go through that discipline of that really, really tight 3 months to 6 months to enforce your habit, which is pain, you've got to do it, it's a mindset thing. It then becomes easy, and then you can actually allow a bit of slippage because you know you're not going to relapse back, you know. I mean, you do see this a lot. You know, I've got friends that relapse, like they lost loads of weight, like to get married or whatever, you know. People want to get married in a certain size and they lose loads of weight to do it. And then a few years later, they're back where they started or even bigger. And why? Because they didn't build a habit of a lifetime, like a lifestyle. So that's why the habits are important. It's not hitting the goal, is it? It's the continuation. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I've waffled a bit there. Be clear on what you want with your visualization, and then start building habits in accordance with that visualization. Like I say in here, you know, look at that identity evolution cycle. I'll bring it up one more time so you can see it. It's very important. You stick this, go to the Goal Achievement Hub website and you can see it. And just print it out. If you get one of these, there's like a QR code where you can get all the downloads. But you literally just want to visualize that how your identity at the top through your projects or your goals that you set, then leads to habits daily. The habits and what you do daily is how you implement any change, right? And then if that is in accordance with your identity, it confirms the identity. And if you want this evolution cycle, if you want to like keep confirming it and keep improving it, you just keep feeding in new stuff, new goals, and you just keep reinforcing habits. That's how it's done. All right, be clear on what you want and go and start working towards it every day with good rituals, routines, and habits. Thank you for listening. I got another crystal here, by the way. Look, I'm sidetracking now. It's a bit of a fancy one, this. So got it when I was in Canada. Amethyst with Canadian jade on the top of it. It's like a bear with a fish in its mouth, obviously. Right. Thank you for listening. Don't forget, like the video, subscribe, and see you all next time.